Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this broadcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is our Saturday edition of Disclosure Tonight. Happy Saturday, everybody. It's that day of the week down to the hour, minute, and second that we take our broadcast time and take it down to around 10 o'clock London time to go ahead and give our friends in the United Kingdom a disclosure tonight for themselves. On that note, let's go ahead and jump into the studio. We've got a big day ahead of us today. Yes, as everyone knows, Lue Elizondo was on Theories of Everything. Of course, we have a great relationship with Curt Jaimungal, allowing us to go ahead and replay it in its entirety if we need to, without the nagging, fair use stuff, because we've got permission. So we're going to have some fun on that. Before we get to that, I want to go ahead and welcome in quickly our audience. Let's see what we have out there for a small group today. Wow. No, wrong one. Who am I talking about? Oh, it's going to be a record today, I tell you. It's going to be a record. Who do we have out there? Let's take a look and see. We have Andy W., Eddie, Eli McGinnis, J-Cat, Kelly Barot, and her piercing blue eyes. Good to see you, Kelly. King Bull's around, along with Mental Gaming, Niles Guy. And how about that? I think we got more people in the back than we have in the front today. On that note, let's go ahead and switch across and welcome in our panel today to see who's going to be raising their hand to ask questions or give comments about what we're watching. All right, who do we have here first? Our friend coming in from Bristol, United Kingdom, or near Bristol. Let's welcome in Andy W. How's it going, Andy?
Hi, Thomas. Yeah, if my throat holds up and my voice holds up, yeah, all good.
Yeah, good to have you. Good to have you back, my friend. Absolutely.
Good to be back again.
Yeah. Let's jump across the pond to the east coast of to the central United States, I think Michigan for that fact, to welcome in our dear friend Hollywood Harold, the man, the legend, who brought up the Nightcrawler last night. Good move, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Field goal.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for coming around, Harold. Love your collection of toys. Reminds me of my office upstairs.
We'll see. I might have some good questions tonight, too, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be wonderful, my friend. Also, we have our remote viewing targeter. Let's go ahead and introduce Mrs. Laura Campbell. Laura, welcome, my dear lady.
Hi, Thomas. I look forward to today's show again. A lot of little news has been breaking the last couple hours. Did some remote viewing the other day with a friend of mine, and did get some information that we can share later.
Oh, looking forward to it, Laura. Looking forward to it, my friend.
Yeah.
Also in the back, let's see, Ms. Cussout. Welcome, my dear lady. How you doing today? Oh, she just left. Shelley Montgomery. Welcome, Shelley. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Thomas. Hi, everybody. Can't wait to hear what's going to happen today.
Oh, neither can I. We actually have a breaking UFO news. Lou is on Fox News. We're going to be showing that first. Thank you for coming in today. What would you look at? Oh, Shelley, you're beautiful. Thanks for coming in today, my dear lady. Love the tan. Also in the back, we've got our dear friend Nick. Are you there, Nick? You heard you make a noise, so you got put up front. Nope, he's muted. Let's move on down the coast to Southern California. It's a place we all ought to be. Let's welcome in Mr. Faze Will. How's it going, Faze Will?
Hey, Thomas. I'm just here making dinner, cooking. So just hanging out.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And off we flip across coast to New York, close to where Mike is. Let's go ahead and welcome in Tia Loreno. How's it going, Tia?
Hey, Thomas. Excited to hear Laura's information she's got there. So.
Oh, I know. It's going to be a good one. We'll try to find a way to sandwich it in this broadcast. It's going to be a fun one, I think.
Yeah. It's always fun on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. On that, I want to welcome back our illustrious co-host / producer. Let's welcome back Mike Disclosure. How's it going, Mike?
Oh, it's going well, Thomas. It's going to be, I think, a very fun international audience for our members in the UK and abroad. And we're going to go over Lue and all things Lue that's been going on all week. It's kind of like a recap of Lue news. Yeah. And it's going to be fun. We had fun last night with Darcy and Andy Marcial.
Oh, yeah, it was. So, we got into talk about so many different things outside of just Puerto Rico. Well, there is a lot of stuff to talk about in Puerto Rico. And if you want to learn about the science of what happened in Puerto Rico, go ahead and check out UAPtheory.com. A phenomenal site. It's been recommended by Lue Elizondo and as well as Christopher Mellon, for that matter. Great information, a great science look, truly of the science behind UAP. On that note, let's go ahead and get this thing going in a traditional breaking UFOs alert. We have got a video here coming in of Lue Elizondo on Jesse Waters. Let's go ahead and see what I can do to get this one to be brought up here. I'm trying to figure out where everything is. Video full. There we go. Let me make sure I've got close enough. Oh, come on. There you go. Perfect. Let's go ahead and get this going. Here we go. Actually, make sure is the music off? Music's off. Okay. My my audio system is screwed up in here today. I'm not going to try and fix it because I'll kill the stream. So here we go, everybody.
Americans have been making contact with UFOs before there even was an America. In 1639, 3 prominent Puritans living in Boston were rowboating in a swamp and noticed a glowing green light in the sky. The light came from above, then settled on the shoreline and turned into the strangest thing. One witness described the being like this. When it ran, it was fast as an arrow and contracted into a figure of a swine, calling out in a most dreadful manner, "Boy, boy, come away, come away." And then, like an apparition, it was gone. We've been hearing spooky stories like this for the last 400 years, making headlines and piquing interest in fringe communities. And most kind of write it off as nonsense, like former senior Pentagon official like Luis Elizondo. He didn't think UFOs were real.
Elizondo? Did he just say that?
Yes, what an idiot. Sorry.
Yeah, he did. He murdered.
Oh, it's
the name.
Jesse Waters, though, you know. Take him with a grain of salt. Here we go.
Schmuck.
But that all changed when he was tapped to join an elite aerospace counterintelligence team where he saw things he couldn't believe.
Imagine a technology that can do 600 to 700 G-forces, that can fly at 13,000 miles an hour, that it can evade radar, and that can fly through air and water and possibly space. And, oh, by the way, has no obvious signs of propulsion, no wings, no control surfaces, and yet still can defy the natural effects of Earth's gravity. That's precisely what we're seeing.
In his role in the Aerospace Threat Identification Program, Elizondo says he received droves of reports from the Navy that UFOs were bobbing and weaving through their tight plane formations, zooming around during the drills. He says, quote, "They were also performing in ways that far exceeded our technological capabilities. If an adversary like Russia or China had this technology, it would represent a quantum leap beyond anything we have." During his time in the program, Elizondo says he learned about an ultra-secret government legacy program that possesses UFO materials of a non-human origin. What does that mean? And why doesn't the government come clean about what they know? Are we alone in this universe or not? Author of the new book, Imminent, Luis Elizondo himself joins me now. So
Thank you very much.
Of course, welcome to Jesse Waters Primetime. People always say, well, what proof do you have? And what would you say?
Sure. Well, it's not what proof I have. It's what proof the United States government has and has had for quite some time. I think people would be shocked to know that the U.S. government has had many UFO or UAP, now we call them, programs in the past and continue to have. And it's only been recently, I think, because of the veil of stigma and taboo is beginning to decrease, that elements within the U.S. government are now actually coming forward and having the conversation with Congress, with the executive branch, and the American people.
What do we know about the aliens? We all have seen the images of what look like drones or UFOs, whatever. But what about the little green guys? What do we know about those guys?
Sure. Well, what our focus was primarily, mine was on the nuts and bolts of vehicles that were performing in ways that could, frankly, outperform anything that we had in our inventory at the time, and frankly, that we have right now. We're talking about vehicles, as you saw there in the video, that are leaps and bounds ahead of the very, very best capabilities we have, and we're pretty sure adversarial capabilities, and they're being encountered over controlled U.S. airspace and over sensitive military installations, and It appears they may even have the ability to affect our nuclear capabilities.
Ooh.
And so from a national security perspective, this isn't grandma seeing some lights in the backyard. These are trained F-18 fighter pilots. Everybody sees the movie Top Gun. These are real Top Gun pilots that can distinguish the difference between an Su-22, a MiG-25, and an F-16 from 10 miles away. And by the way, make a split-second decision, do I shoot it down? And oh, by the way, that's also being backed up by gun camera footage and forward-looking infrared and other electro-optical data systems, collection systems, and radar systems. So my old job as a former special agent, if all this information, you've got the same information being reported at the same time, under the same circumstances, at the same place, by several different sort collection capabilities, we'd have no choice but the jury would have to convict. We're well beyond reasonable doubt.
All right, well, hopefully we're capturing these suckers, reverse engineering them, and then using them against our enemies. That's what I would do, but we'll see what we end up doing in reality. Thank you so much. Everybody go check the book out. Imminent. It's going to be
my honor and privilege. Thank you so much, Jesse.
Thank you.
There you go, Lue Elizondo on Jesse Waters. It's a shame that during this interview, I have to bring up and say that they spend so much time on a really old intro that seems like it was written from information from years ago. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, aside from the fact that he completely murdered Lue Elizondo's name for no reason, and not that Lue has a complicated last name, he doesn't. It doesn't seem like they're putting a lot of money in the production value of that show.
Where did the extra M come from? Because he pronounced it Elizondo.
Yeah, something ridiculous like that. He was maybe stuttering. I don't know. I've never seen him do that before.
Maybe he's getting old.
Maybe something. Did you see how he said this is part of the fringe topic?
Yeah, hello, Fringe friends. How you doing today?
Mm-hmm.
Andy, got your hand up, my friend.
Yeah, Miller in poor Lou's name, yeah. Bit of a, sad. But I just wish I did put it in chat. I wish when he said whoever this interviewer was, because he's not known in the UK. I wish he'd said, when the little green men, I wish Lou had turned around and said they're not green.
Yeah.
That would have been quite nice.
Yeah, that would be acknowledging something he maybe isn't allowed to go ahead and say. But I couldn't agree with you more, Andy, my friend. Yes. Thank you for getting onto that one. Now, as we've all been looking forward to on this particular point, is we've got an interview here with Lue Elizondo on Theories of Everything. I've got it here up in a higher quality form that we can get playing it back from YouTube, but I'm going to have to skip around trying to find some of the places. Oh, screw it. Let's just take the easy route. Let's go ahead. And, by the way, FreezerMan71. Cheers, Thomas. Happy Saturday, everybody. Canadian $10. Thank you very much, FreezerMan71. And sorry last night if I didn't thank people for the super chats when they were coming in at the start of the show. I missed it. I was paying attention to the guests. What a good opportunity that was last night. On that note, let's go ahead and let's get back to this Theories of Everything broadcast with Curt Jaimungal and Lue Elizondo. There's a long list of different things we can go ahead and look at here today. So going through this, I am gonna take some liberty. I think the first thing we're gonna go ahead and talk about or listen in on is the greatest threat to humanity, followed by Lue's current security clearance, which is a question all of us, including myself, would like to know more detail on that note. Let me see if I can just get this up here to 605. Wrong video. Let's just do it. 605. Let's copy this link. Copy link. Go to here, paste it. All right, and here we go.
Is it somebody in the government hijacking? I'm going to, if I can, digress here for a minute and share a story with you. I've shared it a few times already, only recently. And what you may or may not know is my father recently passed away. He had cancer, like my mother. And my father, however, he was an old soldier, man. That guy, he never told me he was sick. I knew he was sick because I could see him starting to fail.
Yeah.
But he never told me. And so I was very fortunate. About a month before he passed away, I was fortunate enough to go on a road trip with him. We were driving from
to go pick up his dad. I talked to Lue when that was going on. I think we both did, didn't we, Mike? Yeah, Thomas, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when he was talking about that in the interview, yes, we were on the phone with him when he was on the road to go do that. That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
no, you're right. Yeah, that was very emotional for him.
Yeah, it was. Better, let's let him tell the story. Besides us going ahead and giving it away, let's get into this and play it. Here we go. The dogs are about to go out for a walk, but I'm doing the live stream. Here we go.
In Wyoming, down to South Florida, where he lived, and he was staying with his sister. And we're driving, and we got 3 days to catch up on conversations. And I asked my dad, and probably a bit flippantly, I said, "Dad, what is the greatest threat to humanity?" And I was thinking to myself, maybe it's some sort of pandemic or disease, or maybe it's, who knows what, terrorism, right? Mm-hmm. And my father looked at me and he thought for a second and he said, "Corruption." And I said, "Corruption? Like financial corruption?" He said, "No, son, corruption. Corruption is the act of when you give up or trade one's own values in exchange for something else, right? That corruption, whether it's moral corruption, religious corruption, governmental corruption, means it's a trade. You're trading your own values in exchange for something else. And when you do that...
So by far, what Lou is saying here, the greatest threat to humanity is corruption. Excellent.
The government, that begins to erode the very pillar of what democracy is. And my father said to me, and he was right, he said, "Son, it's a very slippery slope from the moment you start chiseling away at the pillar of democracy to totalitarianism and tyranny." And it happens very quick. And my father would know because he was a revolutionary in Cuba. My father was in the Bay of Pigs. He fought along with Castro initially when Castro fought against Batista. But then when Castro turned communist, my father joined the now famous CIA Brigade 2506. In fact, if you type in my name and type in Bay of Pigs, you'll see my father's prisoner number that he was assigned. And he lived through that tyranny. And he came to this country, and this country gave us opportunities that no other country would or could offer. And so my father was very loyal to this country. And he taught me at a very early age, what freedom actually means and what someone has to do to preserve it. And the problem is our country here is so great and it's so rich that people can get away with being corrupt in some cases because it's just the system can absorb it. The problem is you reach a critical mass where someone begins to, for example, the UAP topic, let's get specific here. When someone in our government decides to unilaterally make decisions and not inform our Congress and not inform our president of efforts and expenditures that they are entitled to know, that person is now making a decision that actually corrupts the entire system. It circumvents our Constitution. And at the end of the day, our Constitution either means something or it doesn't. And part of my if you will, my quest is to ensure greater transparency and accountability for the American people on this topic and any other topic too, by the way, that the government has hidden for so long from the American people. I don't want to be confused with trying to say, well, we should tell the world about all our national secrets. I'm not saying that. I never have said that. In fact, if I ever had to choose national security over disclosure, I would choose national security.
Bingo. That's what Lou has said many, many times, hasn't it, Mike? And that could be one of the reasons it's taking so long.
Yeah, because very simply put, if you're going to be an advocate for disclosure, it kind of goes against the national security efforts because, as we've talked about here on the show many, many times, the main way that our government has been able to keep the truth about this from the American public and the world is because of the passage of the 1947 National Security Act. And they've hid behind that and the 1954 Atomic Energy Act to prevent any knowledge of this that they're in possession of from coming out publicly.
Yeah.
So Lue is kind of on the fence because in his position, being a disclosure advocate, but at the same time being a member of the intelligence community with a national security oath and clearances, he has to pick and choose very carefully as far as what it is that he brings out publicly. It's a tough line to have to balance something like that with. And it's something that is kind of, it's like putting your foot on the gas and the brake in the car at the same time. You're not going to go anywhere, but it's going to rip the car to pieces. That's what this whole disclosure topic has been, especially from Lue's perspective, in his shoes, with everything he has to juggle.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for that insight, Mike. I appreciate that. Let's continue on with this clip, and before we get on to the next one.
I am a patriot. I love my country. I love my government. What I don't want are people making unilateral decisions that short circuit the legal process, because that puts everybody at risk. That puts everybody at jeopardy, because then people don't have faith and confidence in their government anymore. So this is what drove me to do what I did. Again, I know that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but you asked me a few things in there, and I wanted to try to tie them together.
What specifically I'm looking for is, you mentioned you still consult with the government, and so the government is quite large. So what's meant by that? Also, consultation is quite a general term. So what's meant by that?
Okay.
Just remember, going all the way back to when Lue was on UCR, the Unidentified Celebrity Review back in the day, Lue at that time came out and said he was a government contractor. And based on what we're going to hear now, there's been a continuation of that.
So I still maintain my security clearance with the United States government. And when asked, I have consulted and will continue to consult on an as-needed basis on a variety of issues, whether they're, let's say, counterterrorism or UAP related. Doesn't matter. I'm here to serve. As far as what capacity that it is, mostly it's a consultant. So within the consultant arena within the U.S. government, you really have three types of
sorry about that.
People. You've got military personnel, men and women in uniform. Then you have you have government contractors that do a lot of the work for the military. And then you have civilian service. And so civilian service and military service are pretty co-equals. And then the contractors are there to provide the support to both government civilians and government military personnel in various branches of the government. It doesn't have to just be executive branch, it can be legislative branch, judicial branch. That's kind of how it works. As for me, my consultation has primarily been in the executive branch when asked, and I will continue to advise the government when asked to do it. I don't actively look to do.
Mike, that's new. That's very new. This is the first time we've had Lue coming out and stating that he's a contractor for the executive branch.
Well, when he says the executive branch, he's talking about a lot of the branches in the intelligence community, like the NRO,
well,
Space
potentially,
Force,
yes, they all wrap up to the executive branch, but it may be from a higher level, not down in the DOD, the NRO, the CIA, etc. This could be something where he's dealing with this on a higher level.
He could be.
Yes.
Let's see what he says.
Yep.
But if they need my help, I will do it, and I have done it. As a consultant, it is a contractor. So in the capacity of a consultant, you're coming in usually as a contractor. So it means you've got a task. You're the government boss. You say, Lue, I need your thoughts. What's the best way to write a national level strategy on the counterproliferation of nuclear weapons? Okay, well, I happen to have a background in the counterproliferation of nuclear weapons and chemical and biological weapons. Let me see what I can do. And that would go ahead and let's say this is not a real scenario. I'm just giving you an example of a scenario where consultants can help. And then they come in and they put some ideas together and say, these are the areas, the highlights that you're going to want to hit. These are the organizations you're going to want to bring involved under the tent to create the strategy. This should be the scope of the strategy. This should be, the policies that come as a result of the strategies. So that's how a consultant works. You're a consultant. You're providing advice and assistance to the government.
Christopher Mellon, in the foreword to your book Imminent, said something akin to, when I first met Lue, we faced a prevailing establishment mindset that associated the UAP issue with irrational beliefs in subjects such as poltergeists and astrology. That to me implies that subjects like poltergeists and astrology are not to be associated with the UAP issue, and many people do this. Do you see them as being distinguished? And what else is ordinarily associated with the UAP issue that you think is irrationally so?
This is going to be a big one because we've heard people like Dave Scott and others talk about how Bigfoot and ghosts and all the different paranormal is all tied back to the non-human intelligence, of which I have to take a step back and say, show me the proof Bigfoot even exists. I think we've got more proof on UFOs than Bigfoot for that matter, but let's hear what Lou has to say.
Great question. Wow. Well, first of all, if you want to expound on that piece, you'd probably want to talk to Chris Mellon. But when you read that forward, if you read it carefully, he's not necessarily saying he agrees with that irrationality. He's just simply saying people make that comparison. But I don't think, Chris, if you read that sentence again, Chris, I don't think is diminishing it at all. He's just simply saying people wrap the UFP topic in other areas that consider irrational, like poltergeists and things like that. But I don't think you're hearing him actually say that they're irrational. What he's doing is just making a comparison to the topics that most people look at one topic and wrap that with everything else and say it's pseudoscience or whatever. Look, I can't tell. My focus was more on the nuts and bolts aspect of the UAP phenomenon. Now, that doesn't mean much because in my book, I talk about these green diffuse orbs.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Okay. So, could those be natural phenomena? Sure, absolutely. It was just weird that it was happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. Myself and even other folks in ATIP were looking into it. But, look, Curt, this is a huge and vast universe. And a lot of things that we have considered. Actually, I'll give a briefing. You know what? I'll just go through it real quick with you right now. I have a briefing where I start the briefing by defining the word para. And in Latin, it means above or beside. And so when you say the word parachute, what do you think of? And then I have a picture of a parachute and, person, coming down slowly and hopefully hitting the ground with a thud and not a thump, right? And then I say the word, and I show the word paramedic. What does that mean to you? Mm-hmm. And usually it means a first responder, and I show a picture of an ambulance and, some people there smiling and, a lifesaver.
It's a zombie. Nice.
And then I say the word, and I show the word paranormal. And I pause for a moment, and you can see around the group when I give this briefing, they kind of look at you like this, and they might snicker a little bit. I say, what do you mean paranormal? I just said paranormal. And the reason why people have that reaction is because we have been socially engineered. We have been conditioned to think that the word paranormal is weird and it's occult related to the occult. And in reality, by definition, everything in science, as a scientist, everything in science is paranormal until it becomes normal, right? This cell phone, 50 years ago, absolutely paranormal, right? Now it's routine and mundane. In fact, there are many examples where, for example, the tribes in the rainforest in South America took a picture and they thought you were stealing their soul. And they'd get very, very upset by that, right? That was paranormal for them. Seeing a photo.
Oh my God, I know Sicilians that feel the same way today. You don't have to go to the tribes of South America to deal with that, Mike.
Exactly, Thomas.
Yeah. Sicilians in Germany, I'll be exact, Mario.
Normal. Even as when I was a young guy in microbiology and immunology, even at the university level, we were taught that acupuncture is nonsense. It's Eastern medicine, and it's a waste of time and could be considered paranormal. Now, the Department of Veterans Affairs actually prescribes acupuncture for some of our wounded veterans, right? It's no longer in the realm of paranormal. It's actually therapeutic. So we have to understand that when we say things like poltergeists or whatever label du jour we want to put on something, it's just a word we use to try to explain something we don't yet have a full explanation for, right? Keep in mind one of the famous quotes that, technology in 20 years from now would look like magic to us today, right? It's just technology. So I'm always very careful to try to say to people, well, that other stuff is nonsense. This is what we need to focus on. I don't believe that. Is there a relationship? There could be. I mean, everything is related when you're a human being. I mean, you can relate anything. Literally, you can relate a light bulb and a fish if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So I'm very careful not to jump to any preconceived conclusion.
That was in The Simpsons, by the way.
Yes, and if we can, I want to jump to the next part of the conversation where Lou is talking about his experience with orbs. An interesting conversation. Just remember, if you have things going around in your house on a regular basis, you can get cameras really cheap, put them up around your house, and capture the evidence for everybody. Let's see what Lou has to say about it from his own personal experience. Here we go.
So let's talk about one of the most fascinating chapters in your book, the one about orbs. Why don't you give the story about the orbs? Why don't you bring the audience up to speed, please? And by the way, this is in the book named Imminent.
Yeah, so let me first preface. My family and I, to include a couple neighbors, experienced something very odd over the course of a period of time while I was associated with the ATIP program. And there were these diffuse green, luminous balls of light with no hard edge. Think of like a neon sign, how it kind of glows. This was the size, anywhere between the size of a volleyball to the size of a little baseball. And they were seen not only by me, and I wouldn't have said anything if I wasn't one to see them.
But my phone and my camera?
And my children saw these luminous balls float down the hallway, in some cases, of our home and pass right through a wall or through a door. Now, the only congruency I can say definitively is that when we had experienced these balls of light, whatever they were, it was during a time that I was involved in the ATIP program. And it turns out other individuals who were also involved in that program also experienced similar encounters. That's their story to tell, not mine. But definitively, we had that encounter since going back to like 2010, very early on. Now, let me preface this. Could have been ball lightning. Sure. Could there be an electrical glitch and a wiring problem in my house that was creating some sort of St. Elmo's fire effect? Sure. Could it have been some sort of plasma energy because there was a storm 20 miles away that did something with the atmosphere, and now because of the electrical conduit in my house, ball lightning was experienced and static charge? I don't know. It is possible. Absolutely. I can only relay to you what actually occurred, and whether or not there was a connection between that and the UAP phenomenon. Some people say yes. Some people say definitively yes, there's a connection there. We don't know what they are. Maybe they're drones. Maybe there's some sort of unmanned vehicle, surveillance vehicle, ISR type capability to monitor things. I couldn't tell you. I just know it did not seem to be technological. And then when you talk to other people, like indigenous people, they ascribe that to being spirits, right? It has nothing to do with UAP. It actually has to do with spirits and ancestors coming to visit you. And then you talk to some other folks that have a different explanation for it. You talk to scientists, they say, oh, it's just ball lightning. But it was very strange. And so I decided to put it in the book because I don't know what it means, but I wanted to be transparent and share that with the reader.
It almost seems like something that scientists should get involved in. I'm seeing these things are in my house. Let's get an investigation going in from an intelligence aspect, trying to figure out what we're seeing and what we're trying to deal with here.
You saw it at the same time, or they also reported it, but at different times?
Both. Sometimes we all saw it together. We were in the living room watching TV, and from the kitchen right down the hallway, it just kind of floats by. And it actually, to the point where it illuminates, I don't know if you can see behind me the wall here, but kind of like the ambient light here is illuminating the wall behind me. It would actually illuminate the surrounding sheetrock, the drywall. There was definitely it was luminous, but you couldn't see anything in the middle.
Okay, so it was emitting light.
It was emitting light.
Did you feel anything when it would come by, other than maybe the fear or anxiety associated with something unknown? Did you feel something like...
Nothing, no. And some people report feeling like a static charge or something. Nothing at all. But to be truthful with you, I wasn't necessarily going to go up and touch it either.
Oh, how about psychologically? Like dread?
No fear. I think a wonderment. curiosity from my wife and my kids. My kids had a lot easier time. They sometimes giggle about it when they were young. My wife was more curious, as in, what is that? And did you all see that? Yeah, we're sitting right here. We all saw it too. No fear. I don't. If you'd have to ask my wife, I don't think she had a sense of fear at all. Which, looking back, maybe it's kind of bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
I think, if I were to tell you, hey, you're going to have a green orb of light in your house today or tonight, there might be some element of fear. But if you're just sitting down watching TV, not expecting it, and boom, it just goes by, I'm not sure there's even time to have fear. It's kind of just as,
wow, how quick was it then?
Slow, maybe. Let's say this phone fuel rod is it? Boy, it's hard to. Like that, all the way down the hall. I mean, enough where, like, walking speed. Sometimes like a fast walking speed, like kind of a brisk walking speed. It never.
So interesting.
It never hung around. It didn't loiter. It didn't come up to your face. It didn't scan anything. It was just in the house, and it would go right through a wall or right through a door without making a sound, without disturbing anything. Like it was cotton, just right through. Really weird.
And was there any correlation between time of day?
No. No, that's not true. It happened mostly in the evenings, early evenings, late evenings. We were mostly asleep, so I couldn't tell you if it did happen. Never started. We were sleeping, but anywhere between 5 to 8 o'clock at night, and it would happen randomly, different parts of the house. It was. Some people laugh because, you got a cemetery nearby, which we did. We had a cemetery nearby the house, probably about half a block away. But I don't think the two are related at all. I don't think it was. I mean, some people said there. I mean, certain Aboriginal people say there's a connection between.
Oh, my mom lived, in retrospect, about a half a block from a cemetery, the back of their property, going across an old cemetery that was started back in the 1800s. My mom had odd stuff going on in her house as well. So sometimes when you do live in close proximity to a cemetery, things do happen. So I'm not going to rule the cemetery part out, because if it was in Lue's house, it was in the neighbor's house, potentially it would have been good to know if this had been going on since Lue moved in, or had it been going on in the other houses before Lue arrived. That would be the question I would really like to ask all the neighbors.
These luminous balls and potentially, I guess, ancestors and spirits, but I never came to that conclusion.
Did they zigzag, or was it a smooth motion or a straight motion?
Very smooth, very straight. There was no erratic. It was literally like taking a balloon and letting it just kind of float down the hallway. It wouldn't zigzag. It wasn't trying to evade anything. It would just kind of float right on through.
If you saw one in a day, you would not see it.
Correct. It was usually just one a day. They didn't come in pairs.
Really quick, I haven't been able to do this yet in the show. I want to go ahead and thank FaZe Will for this wonderful super chat. Holy cow. Every dollar that comes in to Disclosure tonight goes back into our production fund. I want to thank FaZe Will for your super chat, my friend. Also, who else gave us a super chat tonight? Sang Boom gave us another super chat. Just thumbs up and $3. Freezerman71. Cheers, Thomas. Happy Saturday, everybody. Canadian $10. Thank you very much, everybody, for your love and support of everything we do here at Disclosure tonight. This is a fan-funded broadcast, besides what comes out of me. I appreciate everyone's love and support for what we do here. So let's continue on with this. And I think right now we've been listening to his experience with orbs. But we're going to jump past the hitchhiker effect and go to Lue going dark, because this is personal for me, because back at the time that Lue went dark about 1.5 years ago was the time he actually offered myself and Rob Heatherly positions within his organization they had going at the time. While it never came around and he went dark and everything was split up, including the organization we were going to get brought into, it was a sad part of that effort. But let's listen what Lue has to say and continue on. Let me shut off this music, and here we go. Let's jump across now to Lue going dark.
What it means, frankly.
Why don't you talk about what have you been up to in the past couple of years? Why does it seem like you've gone dark, quote unquote?
I did go dark. I didn't seem like it. I did. It was a self-imposed. There was a lot of work that needed to be done. As most people know.
And the trolls got too close.
Don't like the public attention. For people who really know me, they'll tell you the truth. And I've always been very honest about it. I'm introverted, very introverted. When guys are going out to, the sports bar, I'm in my basement writing patents. That's, it's the reason why I live in nowhere, Wyoming, in the middle of nowhere. I enjoy my privacy. I enjoy my solitude. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. I like being alone. I'm not lonely. And that's just my character. Most people who know me very well will say the same thing.
I'm similar. I think the proof of God, by the way, is that there exists excuses in life. So when someone says, hey, can you meet up and I have to go to the airport? I'm like, oh, thank God, literally, that I have to go to the airport and I have a legitimate excuse.
I'm the same way. So, being in the public eye for me is not enjoyable. A lot of people love it. They thrive off of it. They love the attention. They love that adrenaline. To me, I find it exhausting. The sooner I could just fade off into the sunset, the better. So when I have nothing to say and I'm working on something behind the scenes, I don't say it. I'm very quiet about it. So from my perspective, I was writing this book, took me 3 years. It took almost a year review process through the Pentagon. I wanted it to go through the proper process. So then when it got approved, I could talk about it, right? And people say, well, why'd you write a book? It's very simple. When you write something down, those words are indelible, right? I can have a conversation all day long on mainstream media and it gets converted to ones and zeros and digital and people forget about it. Mm-hmm. It's the reason why the ancient Egyptians wrote the Book of the Dead on papyrus. It's the reason why the Magna Carta was written on parchment. It's the reason why our Constitution was written down, because written word is indelible. It lives forever. And so when I was able to write this book,
This is a comment we've heard from Lue many times, that the reason he did the book is because when you put words on paper, it becomes indelible. Whether it's on paper or it's a digital form, he's just trying to say when you publish a book, it has a different meaning. And I have to say, bringing out the book the way that it's going, #1 New York Times bestseller. The interviews he's been getting, the press he's been getting on it. It's not just about it being indelible. It's when you publish a book and you got publishing companies behind you, they help you get the word out.
To put my own experiences down that I knew nobody would ever be able to take away. This was my experience for the record. And more importantly, I knew then it had to go through the Pentagon for a security review. And that's important because remember, I do have a security clearance. I'm not out to violate my security oath. But I knew that when it came back from the Pentagon, I would actually be able to talk about it without fear of going to jail, because that is also a very real fear that I've had, that if I step over, I know there's people watching every day, every word I say. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If I say something that I'm not supposed to, I will be in big trouble. So I'm very, very conscious about what I can and can't say. Probably almost paranoid about it because I am very, very conscientious about that.
One thing I have to say, though, Lue talks a lot more on a lot of different things more than David Grush does, and he stays between the lines. That's one area where David definitely has. I mean, Lue has a talent to stay in between those lines without getting in trouble because he's been doing this for years.
I don't want to compromise national security. That's never been my intent. But my point being is that once it comes back from the Pentagon, not only are these my words and my experiences, but now it's an endorsement by the government to say I can actually talk about it. Now, did they still redact information? They did. Even though I made every effort to try to make this book completely unclassified, there were still sections that the government found was too sensitive, and they redacted. But I left those redactions so that anybody reading the book can see there are sections there. They're just black lines that the government, as written, so you know that the government doesn't want you to know that. Which is fine. I respect that.
That's the question I had. When I was reading it, I noticed the black lines, and I was thinking, look, if an editor told me you have to remove this section or this word for whatever reason, I would just remove it. I would reword around that.
No, that's a Pentagon.
It was as if you were signaling to the reader.
Absolutely. Because I want the reader to know, look, there's still portions of the story that the government doesn't want you to know about. And I'm not going to put it in there, but you can see exactly the length and the part of the conversation where things got a little bit too sensitive for the government's liking.
Now,
I did that. I made that deliberate decision.
One thing we're missing from that, Mike, we're all looking forward to from conversations we had 6 months ago, was that we were going to find out specifically which agency required those redactions to be in place. And that was supposed to be in an index, I believe, wasn't it?
Yes, you're right. And that was from a private conversation that we had. It was supposed to indicate the agency and the person requesting those redactions. But for some reason, when the book finally came out,
it wasn't
that
there.
Information was not there. Correct.
Yeah.
Very odd.
That's a shame, because it would have been really great to know who specifically was redacting the stuff, not just redacted by Susan Goff and the DOD, but who? Which agency? Was it the CIA? Was it ARO? Was it another agency within the DOD? Was it the FBI? Who knows?
Well, we have a pretty good idea. It was the CIA.
Yeah,
They've been at the heart of this for the past 80 years.
Yeah.
So nothing has changed.
Nope.
They probably were the ones who made those requests. But look, Lue is a team player, and he's not going to rock the boat.
Of course not.
Especially if he's still gainfully employed by the government.
Oh, yeah.
So
you
he
know,
knows where the
by
lines
still
are.
being gainfully employed by the government, two things. One, he gets to retain his security clearances. Two,
correct,
they get to retain their golden handcuffs.
Right. That's right. That's why
because if that's where he's making all of his money, that's where his money every month hopefully is coming in. Not always, but hopefully it is.
Well, we also know, and we've talked about this mostly privately, but Lue is currently building a new business venture with Jay Stratton and Travis Taylor.
Yeah.
So he's probably going to try to have his own income stream aside from the government. That may free up his hands a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I was saying, it took him 3 years to write this book. Hopefully, after he got the first one through Dopser, I was hoping to hear that he'd have another one in Dopser already, but that's not the case. This is a one-shot deal at this point. Hopefully, there will be another one coming. But if it takes him 3 years to get one book out, book two could take a long time.
Well, that's because you and I are well aware of Lue's personal motto, and he says all the time, do things right. Not right now. That's just who Lue is.
Yep.
That's what he believes in. You know that.
Of course, yes. I just want to
It's going to take his time if there's a second book.
I just wanted to bring out some commentary because that's why our audience watches this show.
Exactly. No, good point.
All right.
But either he's going to be busy with the new business venture he's building, Quantum Frontiers.
Yeah.
Or maybe work on a second book. I guess he's waiting to see how this book turns out. But so far, it's the #1 seller on the New York Times bestseller list.
Maybe $500,000, maybe 400,000. Who knows how much he's going to get pulled out of it? Those are just speculative numbers, just saying, folks. But either way, he deserves. If anybody deserves some revenue coming in from this, it'd be Lue. And I could be way wrong on those numbers, but I'm just throwing out numbers that are coming to the top of my head.
Right. It's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
With the numbers that you're talking about, to give people a realistic idea, which is not going to make him or his family rich and wealthy.
No.
But at least he'll compensate him for the work that he's put into it. Right?
Yeah.
That's the point.
Absolutely. Quickly, J-Cat, love you, DT family. Thank you, Thomas, Mike, and Rick, for everything for all you do. I very, very much appreciate all that Lue is doing. I think we all do, for that matter. Thank you for reinforcing that, J-Cat, and thank you for supporting Disclosure tonight. On that note, let's go ahead and continue on with this. And I think the next part we're going to get to is, do you want to hear it ruin my life or Disclosure as a process next? Anyone in the back?
Disclosure is a process.
All right, we'll go to that one next. Here we go. Let's finish this one off, and we'll jump to that next section. Wait a minute. We did have another super chat come in. This one coming in $10 from Ian Harding. Just a thank you. Thank you, Ian Harding. Appreciate everything that you do in supporting Disclosure tonight. Thank you back, my friend. Many times over.
On purpose.
Was there ever a time where someone from the government said, you're not supposed to talk about X, but X was unclassified, and so you continued to talk about it, you didn't get in trouble?
There are specific examples where a certain letter, a certain email exchange that I've had with seniors about the ATIP program were, even though they were unclassified, the government chose to redact certain mentions of certain words and programs, even though it was unclassified, because it contradicted the false narrative that some in the government have already perpetuated. So by having this email come out the way it is, it shows an opposite of what some people in the government have said for the record. So they removed certain portions of it, and you can see it. You know, there's
That's dirty pool. So even though it's been declassified and people can talk about it because it's gone against the official government narrative, we can't have you saying that. Dirty pool. Dirty pool.
Being blatant that the government is still uncomfortable with me having conversations about certain things.
All right, let's now jump on to the next part of disclosure. Is a process. Remember, disclosure is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Granted, we're into this marathon, but I think it's more of a triathlon than it is a marathon, to tell you the truth. So let me go ahead and get to this one in 105 minutes. And here we go. Disclosure is a process.
Disclosure is a process, not an event. Explain what that means. And how does that cohere with you're going to continue what you're doing until the job is done? Because that sounds like an event.
I think when I first came out, a lot of people were waiting for a government insider to say, yes, not only are UAP real, but the government's been investigating that. Well, they had that. Then they said, well, it's not really disclosure until somebody senior, like in the government, says it. So you have a former director of national intelligence, a former director of CIA, and a former president all saying it. And yet people say, yeah, but it's still not the same. And so the bar keeps moving. And I've told people that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Disclosure isn't an event. It's not you wake up one morning, aha, here it is. No, it's a conversation. It's a lengthy conversation. It's a process. And like anything else that's serious, there's a process to it. And it takes time and it takes sensitization. You know, you have a choice. You can jump into the pool and a cold pool and risk shock if you don't know what temperature the pool is, or you can dip your toe in first and say, okay, that temperature is pretty good. It's not too hot, not too cold. And you put your foot in, and you put your knee in. And it's a slow, gradual process. And you do that to avoid a shock to the system, a shock to the body. If you jump into an ice cold pool or something that's really hot, and your body doesn't have a chance to adjust to it, you know, it's more difficult on the system. And so I think we've come a long way. As far as when my job is done, I don't know what that looks like. I pray every day that it's soon. I don't want to be a torch bearer for this. I shouldn't be the torch bearer. I did what I did.
Really quick, I have to say this, Mike. I mean, Lou says he doesn't want to be the leader of this. He doesn't want to be the torchbearer of this. But is there anyone else out there who actually has the role of being the leader in disclosure besides Lue Elizondo? Just being honest here.
I would say Lou is first and foremost on that list for the simple fact that he knows how to talk in generalizations and go right up to that line of national security. He's also been the one who's been most public. Now, I know second to that is his close friend, Christopher Mellon, who has also spoken publicly on this topic as a former government employee. But first and foremost, it's Lou by far, because he's done the most public speaking on this, more than almost anybody else. And I think that he is the authority on, let's call it, the silver age of disclosure, because from 2017, when Luke came forward, he has propelled this discussion around the world with the public and the government more so than it has in the past decades prior to that. So I think that even if he doesn't want it, he has a responsibility for being the voice of disclosure for the past 7 years going on. And like he said, he hasn't completed the mission yet. There's still a lot more to be done. And Lou also said that he wouldn't stop until the mission is complete. You know who else said that? David Grush. David Grush said that he sacrificed and smoked his career as a young person in the government in intelligence and could have continued on his merry way in his life without having to be dragged into any of this or the sacrifices that he had to make. But what he did say is that he's on a mission, and until the mission is completed, he too isn't going to stop. And I believe that to be true, as I'm sure you do as well, because we've had private conversations about this. So, yeah, it seems like people like Lue from the government that have knowledge and access to this information are pushing forward. Now, Lue has also suffered a lot of sacrifices from the retribution that he and his family have had to endure coming from the government to suppress this knowledge and information. But Lue said that when he no longer has to come forward to do interviews, that's when he knows that he was successful in bringing this out to everybody, when we're no longer looking to him for answers.
Yep.
But we're not there yet. So it's something that, like it or not, he's going to have to continue to deal with. It's a shame because he has made a lot of sacrifices, and like it or not, he inherited the mantle of being on the forefront for public disclosure.
And those who are associated with Lue, like Disclosure Tonight, continually get attacked for the reason that we support Lue. It's been going on for years, and it's slowed down for a bit, but it's back again because Lue's popular again.
Well, he's on mainstream media again, and everyone's talking about him again.
Yeah.
Because as you just heard him tell Curt Jaimungal, he withdrew from the community. He didn't speak publicly for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
He pulled out.
Yeah.
So now he's back again, and now they're targeting him and us because we're friends, and it's a disservice and it's disinformation coming from these trolls. And it just gets in the way of the narrative. It is trolls who are knowingly
taking information that they have access to, and they're misrepresenting it, and they're twisting it. Even though they may remember everything and claim they have a great memory, they sure as hell know how to take what they do remember and the evidence they have and twist it into freaking lies. Right, Mike?
Into something that is the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly, Thomas. No, you're right about that. But the problem is that we've talked about this before Luke came out to do the tour for his book recently. You and I talked publicly on the show months ago that it seems like the social media community is tearing itself apart.
Yeah.
And we said the reason for that is because there's no actual content or information coming forward from Disclosure, from the government or other sources, that they're creating this drama and they're attacking themselves like monkeys in the jungle.
Yeah.
And we talked about this months ago, and now we're being subjected to it, which is only making our point, proving our theory, because that's what they're doing. They're continuing to do that.
And saying something about drama, you make a statement like, quote, hope your wife's new judge position goes well, end quote. And that comes into threatening someone's wife. Huh?
No, not at all. That's not a threat at all, Thomas.
But that's the kind of shit that gets brought out there, and people believe people for bringing this stuff out. And when you're saying one thing and they're twisting it into something else when they have that evidence right there in front of them, it just shows their intent to mislead and disinform people out there to try and make themselves more popular, to bring themselves up by attacking others. That just doesn't make sense.
Because they're, like you just said, they're looking for attention.
Yep.
That's what it is. They have no content, no work of their own that they're doing that's legitimate or credible. Yeah. So if they want attention and they want clicks, they're going to create this Jerry Springer type drama.
Oh, yeah.
Which we've been talking about for months now, and now they're targeting us and Lue as well.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's pretty simple, actually.
Yep. Let's continue on, finish off this section, and then we'll continue on. Here we go.
Now it's time for other people to take the torch. I am not, I was had a really good purpose and use early on. But the longer I wait, the more I worry that we could start losing traction. Because look, I'm just one person. I'm just a human. And I make mistakes all the time, and I forget to brush my teeth, and I'm normal, right? Probably drink too much coffee.
I need to put this on autoplay.
People out there that are far more qualified
than
me, far better than me, more effective than me to have this conversation. I'm just a blue collar guy, man. Just was in the Army for a little bit and went to college and served my country, but that doesn't make me special. You know, people say, "Oh, Lou, you're a hero." No, I'm not a hero. I know what a hero looks like because I served with a lot of them. Some of them didn't come back. You know, those are heroes. I'm not. I'm just doing what anybody in my position who took the same allegiance and oath that I did would do the same thing. I'm not special, and I'm not even particularly good at it, to be honest with you. I'm just trying my best. So, yeah, I don't know what the end looks like. You know, I would love it if one day someone came to me and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, Lou, we'll take it from here." You know, hallelujah. Thank you. I can, you know, change my name and get weird and disappear. You know, I don't know. But until that, I think we'll know. I think we're getting there. I think more people are coming out of the shadows. I think we could get some real good whistleblowers coming forward this year. Will definitely help that process. You know, hopefully I become completely obsolete. When people stop asking me for interviews, I know my job is done because they don't care. I'm now boring, right? So that would be a great indicator. So any of you out there, any of you out there that want an interview with me, stop calling. And we'll be done.
I'll try not to take that personally.
Yeah. It's not. I'm just having fun with you, Curt. But you know, the sooner we can get more people out in the open, I think the better.
So I think the vast majority of people even people who are on the believing end, whatever that means, of the UAP spectrum, I think what they mean when they say, "I would like disclosure," is that sure, disclosure's a process, everything's a process, events, then you transform, and that's a process to another event, but some events are more critical than others or are more significant. It doesn't matter how many whistleblowers come out. It could be 3,000 whistleblowers. What people want is some tangible, verifiable evidence, especially given to the scientific community in the open. So at what point, and this is a respectful question, I mean this respectfully, at what point does the UAP playlist on this channel, the Theories of Everything channel, how can people distinguish that playlist from another playlist with the same videos but titled "Cool Story Bro"?
Well, first of all, the fact that you have people of the caliber you do listening to this conversation right now is different than "check out this cool video, bro." I think your audience is a little more sophisticated than that. Right? Let me be blunt, a lot more sophisticated than that. That's why they listen to your show. They are interested in your approach. Your approach is intellectual curiosity. It's you know, be mindful of the clickbait that's out there because the world's full of it, right? Likes and click this, and you know, you seem to have a very honest debate about this topic and other topics, and that's the discourse that needs to occur. You know, people listen to Theories of Everything because they're not interested in, "Hey, check out this UFO video, bro." You know, because that's not how you have disclosure. You have disclosure by having an intellectual, honest conversation about this. And as we just started, do you remember how we started our conversation? Do you remember that? So we started talking philosophically. It wasn't even about UFOs, right? We were having just a philosophical conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That intellectual curiosity, people that involve themselves in that. Look, I've told you this before, but I'll reiterate it again. The old saying, small minds talk about people, strong minds talk about things, and great minds talk about ideas. Okay. That is your audience that you have. Those are the intellectually curious people out there that want answers, and you know, they want to think for themselves. You know, you ask the questions you do because half the time, whether you have the answer or not, you're trying to provoke thought, and you're trying to provoke people to begin to interact with one another in a way that maybe they wouldn't have considered interacting before. And you're achieving that. And that is not, "Hey, check out this UFO video, bro." That's a completely different audience. And I'm not interested in that audience either. Not that we don't need them on board. We do. We want them part of the conversation. But this conversation that we're having and with your audience right now And your audience is very important to this conversation as well, as long as we can have a respectful and collegial conversation. Look, you and I do not agree on everything, and that's okay. And I don't take it personally, and I'm sure you don't either. And we can have a friendly debate on your program without having feelings hurt, because both of us are, I think, confident in our own intellectual abilities, but more importantly, we also respect each other's intellectual abilities, right? I know there are things that you can do that I can't. There's knowledge that you have, there's an intellectual capability that you have that I don't have. And just like an experience, I have experiences in the government that maybe you don't have, right? So we're coming at it from different perspectives.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's what works. And that's the difference between a show like yours and a show like, some other folks. Again, I'm not hitting on those other shows that do that. But I think we get further in the conversation with shows like you have. And what does that disclosure look like? I don't know if you're ever going to be able to sit there and have a government-sourced video of a UFO landing on the White House lawn. But then again, maybe that's not what's needed. The fact that we have already acknowledged the existence of something there that's not our technology and probably not adversarial technology, well, that's a pretty big step in the right direction. And maybe that's all it takes. And now we allow the people to come up with what we do next about it. Maybe the government, in a way, is waiting to get a cue from the population and see, okay, now that you guys aren't freaking out and rioting and, abandoning religion, still paying your mortgages, maybe the past assessments we've had were wrong. You know what? I've always believed that America can handle the truth. I believe America deserves the truth, and not just us. I think the world does. And I think we can have that conversation, and we're having that conversation. Don't look now, but we're having it. And, people are quitting their jobs and running to the hills and, burying themselves in silos, waiting for the world to end.
I'm not sure if it's about the truth, because the truth would just be a statement that would be critiqued and met with skepticism anyhow. It would have to be something that's tangible, verifiable, and placed into the hands of the scientific community. And I'll give you an example, because this dictum of it's not a sprint, it's a marathon is personal to me in my bailiwick of theoretical physics, because string theorists have been saying that for decades. They'll hold your horses. String theory is not a sprint, it's a marathon. How can you expect us to come up with a theory of everything or humanity's answers, in this case, in such a short amount of time? It was always this 5 to 10 years, something large is going to happen. It becomes a shepherd tone. Do you know what a shepherd tone is?
I am aware of the concept, but I'm not an expert in the term shepherd tone.
In this UAP scene, there's the promise of progress constantly. And a shepherd tone is an auditory illusion. I'll play it for the audience. It will be edited in. Where you take a superposition of sine waves and you separate them by octaves and you give the impression of upward movement. And it's terribly interesting for the first few seconds, but then it becomes deeply unsatisfying the longer you listen, and you can't quite put your finger on why. So you get these droughts interspersed with the dribbles of the promise of some oasis in the shimmering horizon in this scene. And that's what I mean by, even if there's the truth that is revealed, it can't be a proclamation from someone else. Otherwise, that's the Catholic Church saying the Bible means this and this, and then Martin Luther's like, I want to investigate myself and figure it out. I need you to give me the Bible so I can read it myself.
That's a really interesting point, Curt. Let me ask you a question, since you do have a good background in physics. When was the notion of the Higgs boson first proposed, the God particle? Do you know that?
I think it was 1964, if I'm not mistaken.
Do you know when we first actually proved its existence?
2012, if I'm not mistaken, there as well.
Right. 40 years. What did it take to discover the Higgs boson? What did we have to create?
At least funding and a collider.
All for the purposes of trying to find this elusive particle that only existed theoretically, right? The enormous amount of investment. And this was all done in the open, right?
Uh-huh.
And entire countries invested into it, and it still took 40 years. And if you ask most people right now, what's the significance of the Higgs boson and the God particle, they can't tell you. Well, no, it's a subatomic particle. Well, no, it's a lot more. It's much more significant than that, right? How about the idea of a black hole? When was that first proposed? Do you remember? You weren't alive, but I wasn't either. But do you remember when that first idea was proposed?
Well, there were two. One was from, I believe, Pascal, and then another was from a solution to Einstein's equations.
Right.
So that would be in the 1900s.
Correct. Really, 1930s is when the idea was really first proposed of a supermassive, infinite mass, no volume space where gravity was so intense that it literally ripped away space and time to a nonsensical state, right? But Einstein said there's nothing in the universe that could actually do that, right? So it's just theoretical, but it doesn't exist. When was the first time we were actually able to prove the existence, not just through observation, the existence of a black hole and the fact that gravitational waves, that space and time itself, the ripple of space and time, can be measured, and that all that was absolutely true? Do you remember when that occurred? So that was through the LIGOS experiment. And the LIGOS was a laser interferometer where you had two of these sensors separated by quite a bit of a distance. And they detected the first gravitational waves of two supermassive black holes colliding. Now, that was almost a 100-year effort. It almost took us 100 years to prove that. So let's put these ideas in the backdrop that we've only really been at this disclosure thing really maybe the last little bit of a decade. Now, there's a lot of people that wanted disclosure and some people that came out and had conversations, but the government wasn't really actively doing anything. We didn't have a UAP investigative body like ARROW. We did not have Congress being informed and passing laws. That's all relatively recent. So, I would just encourage you to know that it's actually, I think we're moving at a breakneck speed. I think even though it's a marathon, I think we're pretty much sprinting this marathon. We've come a long way in 6 or 7 years.
Wait a minute. He said it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but we've been sprinting the marathon. I think that's
exactly what he said. Yeah. Yep.
And sorry I had to disappear for a bit. I'm in neighbor wars at this point. Not really neighbor wars. I've got a very interesting neighbor who wanted to put up strings and say this is where the property line is and cutting things down and planting horrible bushes. It's one of those, it's the pleasures of being a homeowner.
Get a survey.
In fact, perhaps
put an end to the argument.
Oh, I did. No, I just wanted to go out there and tell the guy, yes, when I was out there and I was looking for the post in the ground to figure out where the property marker is, and I was bending over digging in the dirt in the corner of his backyard to look for the frickin' survey post, I screwed up my neck for like 2 days. I was out of commission. And I just wanted to tell him it's not worth it. What you have there is good enough. Please go with it. But he just kept on going on and on. You know what it's like sometimes. So you have to match the tone of the voice and drop the F-bomb a couple times to get his attention, to say, just wait, listen, looks good. Some people want to argue, but it's just like I wanted to go out there and tell them, yes, where you've got it now, I'll go with it now, and if we ever get a survey in the future and it's different, we'll deal with it there. Make it easy. I wish I had that on camera. That would have been such a great memory.
More, and I don't want to upset anybody, but we may have come more further in this conversation in the last 7 years than we have in the last 70 years. So I understand people are chomping at the bit. I understand people are impatient. But this goes back to what I said before many times, that there's a difference between doing things right and doing things right now. Mm-hmm. And I think we have one shot at doing this right. And I think we're doing it. I think collectively, all of us, we're working towards that goal.
Respectfully, Lou, you sound like a string theorist.
Okay, let's get past string theory. Wonderful. And let's get to, does Lou meditate? No, let's get past it. Let's get into, how about remote viewing, Mike?
Yeah, that's a good topic.
Here we go.
I don't.
How about remote viewing? Do you still engage in remote viewing?
I will just simply say yes, and I don't want to expound upon that.
Oh,
It's
wow.
a topic that some people have trouble digesting, and I get it, and it's very controversial.
So he I'm going to say yes, and I don't want to talk about it, but he's going to talk about it. Let's listen to what he has to say.
But that's for another conversation. And fortunately, it looks like our time is up.
Well, okay.
No, I'm just jerking your chain, man.
Okay, geez, Louis. Look, it's just me and you here, Lou, and maybe 1 million other people.
Yeah.
So what can you say about it without violating any NDA or what have you?
Yeah, so I rarely do this. Let me give you the perspective as it was explained to me, because a lot of it seems like pseudoscience and mumbo jumbo. And the reality is that, let's start with an analogy here. Sorry, because it's the way I talk. I'm Latino, and I kind of use analogies to explain myself.
Okay.
So I have 5 fundamental senses to judge the universe in which I live. And if I can't touch it, taste it, hear it, smell it, etc., I can't perceive it. And yet we know if I had the ability to have, let's say, cell phone vision, and I could see in GPS, I could see in 5G, I could see in AM and FM, I would perceive an entirely different reality around me. I'd be seeing in infrared and ultraviolet spectrums, and microwave. So what does that actually mean? It says, well, I live in Wyoming where we have beautiful night skies, and I can look at the stars and say how gorgeous they are. But if I look at that same part of the sky through a radio telescope, I'll see an entirely different reality. I'll see nebula. I'll see things beyond the spectrum that I can normally see. And so therefore, I see more of the universe, right? So I only perceive through the electro-optical spectrum a very, very, very narrow sliver of what really is out there. And then you have the scalability of the universe, which I won't get into here, but the universe is enormous. And I don't think most people really appreciate just how big the universe really is. Just in the observable universe, there are more stars than there are.
Quick thing on the rise. Do me a favor. Go and watch something called The Band TED Talk with Russell Targ. If you haven't watched that yet, please watch it and take it, everything what they're talking about, a grain of salt. When he talks about the Colonel and the things that were going on, that's Colonel John Alexander, someone who I've met with several times in the past at his house for some great conversations. Absolutely. Just before you throw about, you can be a skeptic about it, but if you're a skeptic, don't listen to what other people are saying. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Lou. Do some real research. Check into it. You may find stuff. You may find some information that opens you up to it, but it's an ability that humanity as a whole has. It's not something special that only I can do or Lou can do or Laura, everything. With practice and ability to calm the mind and get to it, it's something I believe even you could be capable of doing, my friend. It's an amazing thing. So just listen to what Lou has to say with a grain of salt. Here we go.
Just sand and all the beaches of all the world. So think about that for a minute, what that actually means. So we only perceive, because of how tiny we are to the universe, very, very small fraction of what's really out there. So some people have claimed that remote viewing, some scientists, is that human consciousness, the actual, not the intellectual thought process, but what makes us and self-aware and sentient, is a quantum process in the brain, and involves a quantum. When I say quantum, literally the field of quantum mechanics. There is a process occurring in the brain, and that is what creates the illusion of self-awareness and consciousness. If that's the case, some scientists have proposed that let's go back to this analogy here, that pretend this is a cigar, right? Smoking a cigar. You can compare time to the analogy of a cigar, where the past of a cigar is the ashes that have already burned. The future is the part of the cigar that hasn't burned yet, that you hold in your hand. And the present is the cherry. It's a moment of ignition. It's a process where the future becomes the past. It's not really an event. And if you were to look at time at a very, very small scale, Planck scale, some scientists believe that time gets fuzzy, meaning there are elements of the future kind of commingling with elements of the past, and that the cherry, if you will, the moment of ignition of the cigar, it doesn't burn evenly. And perhaps even may explain some of the duality principles of the electron and the electron cloud versus an electron orbit in its valence and actually being able to pinpoint where it is, right? So that was some of the conversation occurring at the time. And so some people had posited that perhaps some people experience the current time, what we consider the present, that cherry, being bigger on the cigar, meaning there are more elements of the future and more elements of the past that could potentially be experienced as if they are occurring now. Now, do we have any proof for that? We do not. Do I necessarily subscribe to that? I don't know. What we do know is that there are nonverbal cues. I suspect remote viewing is just as ordinary. Most people experience it all the time and don't realize it. For example, you are in New York and your spouse is in Toronto, and you say, I'm going to call her. And you give her a call, and she says, you know what? I was just thinking about you. I was just going to call you, right? Some have said, well, that's actually a form of remote viewing. That the brains give off electrical signals. We know that. That's how we can tell if people are clinically dead or not when they've died in a hospital. Is their brainwave function. And
quick note on that, it's not just brainwave function. Even though someone can have no brainwave function going on, they've learned recently there's actually micro vibrations that could be a sign of consciousness that are going on within the microtubules within our brain that it's a quantum kind of a thing. But it's one of those things to say, even though we may think a person is brain dead, there's nothing going on. There's actually something going on. And it's just a limit. It's just a limit of the knowledge we have at this time. Can't wait to see where they're going to take it.
Saying, well, the brains can give off frequencies that we can actually detect. Is it possible that there are some people that can receive those and interpret those frequencies? I don't know. I'm not a medical scientist. I'm certainly not a neurologist. So I would be completely speaking out of context. But my point is, I think when you get into the conversation of remote viewing and nonverbal communication, I'm pretty confident it's based in science. I'm pretty confident it's not mumbo jumbo, weird woo-woo stuff. That at the end of the day, it's probably somewhere embedded within the field of quantum mechanics. If I had to guess, I don't know for sure, but that would be the way I would explain it.
So this cigar theory of time, this fuzzy present, is this something that you've been briefed on? Or is this something you've heard some other physicist speak about, and then you're surmising it has something to do with remote viewing?
Both. Some people have said that is the way it works, and other people have said this is the way time works. And then within my own experience, that's my observation. But again, let me caveat: I could be wrong, and it's a conversation. There's so little known about it. That it's not always accurate, right? So there's a lot of error and interpretive error there, and it's very subjective. So, I can't tell you definitively, other than through my own experience, that it's real and legitimate. There are some incredible statistical findings that the government, we've actually used to find a downed Russian, for example, a supersonic aircraft, experimental aircraft that crashed in Africa near the Congo. And our best satellites couldn't find it, but it took remote viewers about 30 minutes, and they found it. How do you explain that? Well, I don't know. Why do police departments still use psychics to solve cases? Because they have a good batting average. In some cases, they're actually finding the evidence that the police are looking for, right? I can't sit here and tell you, and to your 1 million viewers and listeners out there, how it works, because I don't know how it works. And I don't even know if it works most of the time. I know it works some of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm confident about that. But the mechanics of how it works, I couldn't even begin to tell you, brother. I'm not qualified.
Yeah. And I've been tapped into this stuff since I've been like 7, 8 years old, give or take. And you just get information, it comes in. And you quantify it, you listen to it. You don't go against it because you've learned time and time and time again. You second guess it, you're going to be wrong. It's nowhere different than saying, hey, I'm thinking about someone, and the phone rings, or you call someone else, etc. There's a lot to this, and that's where they keep on saying that our minds are the most powerful quantum devices on this planet, which may turn out to be true. Remember, they're trying to replicate humans, but it's taking quantum systems to get there. It's phenomenal.
That conversation.
Oh, there's so much, man.
All right. So next segment we're going to be talking about in here with Lou is the physical implants, meaning that he had a picture of an implant actually removed from someone from the DOD. Let's go ahead and hear what Lou has to talk about these little things. They move on their own. They have their own energy source, metabolism for moving around. It goes beyond. Who was the doctor down in Florida who was the podiatrist pulling this out of people? This goes well beyond those initial conversations we've had in the past about pulling out implants in people. It actually sheds new light and new credibility and points a finger on, we're not just dealing with the DOD getting screwed with. We're not just dealing with military sites, nuclear sites getting screwed with. Yes, thank you, Robert McLeod, Roger Lear. We're talking about what's going on with the human population. That's the key. What are they doing to us? Excuse my language for a second. Fuck the government, the military, and everything that goes in between. I want to know, what are they doing to humanity? What are they doing to us outside of the military bases? That's why in our conversation last night with Andy and such, that we have to look at this, and Andy and Darcy actually, about this, and understand that there are things going on. That's why DHS, Homeland Security, going ahead and releasing these videos showing these UAP over non-military sites. I would almost beg to say that we are seeing things going on in non-military sites in a factor of 10 to 1, if not 100 or 1,000 to 1. Remember, military sites only occupy a small part of our world. Harold?
Yeah, I was just recalling, I've seen some episodes on TV and something that, what was it, Daryl Sims, the guy who was always dressed in the trench coat and the cowboy hat, that he did a lot of research into implants.
Oh my God, Daryl Sims, the guy who said, my God, everyone who's been abducted by an alien is turned gay.
Well, I don't know about that. He also had.
He did. He said, I saw Mark. I brought out my stuff. And as soon as I saw that, I knew he was going to turn gay. And then within days after that, he called me. He left his family. He left his wife. And he decided to be gay. That was on a UFO Man interview about a year and a half ago. And ever since, I can't take anything Daryl Sims says seriously.
Well, what about his UV stuff with oily fingerprints on the walls?
If he saw the UV symbol and it was on someone and he brought it out and it looked like the Monster energy drink logo, which I know you're familiar with, he said, as soon as I would see that fluorescent signal on him, I knew that person was going to turn gay. You know, maybe everyone who's turned gay has been abducted. I have no idea.
Okay, well,
I know I was, and well, I'm gay, so there you go.
All right. Now I know what to think about all
Harold,
that
were
stuff.
you abducted?
Probably.
Oh, there you go. Welcome to the club. I
need to go look at my MRIs and CT scans and look for stuff, right?
Yeah, I have an MRI that I had done on my brain. They were thinking, oh, what the hell do you have, Fessler? Do you have MS? No, I don't. But I do have brain scans that were done by MRI, so I guess I could go ahead and look at it and see if I have those specialty areas.
Yeah. Well, I'm wearing my tinfoil hat today, so...
Well, if you're wearing yours, I will wear mine. There we go.
Now we're the Bobsy twins.
Now we're equals.
Okay, sorry to bring them up and stuff. I did not know that history, so...
Oh, it's okay. Let's have fun.
All right. Well, carry on.
Absolutely. Here we go.
Okay, let's start with physical implants.
Even Lou is laughing. I love it. And by the way, Harold, I love your office. It is phenomenal. Don't hide it. Ever.
Thank you. I'm always working on it. I got all kinds of things around me here that are worthless to most people, but I treasure them. They're, you know,
yeah, we need to get you
everything
one of those board regeneration things that goes behind you. That will look cool.
Yeah, I'll look into that. Thanks, Thomas.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Harold.
Let's hear more about them.
So implants. Let me explain it to you from a immunological perspective, because that I do have some qualifications to discuss. The body has an autonomic immune response when there is ever introduced a foreign object into the body that the body does not recognize. It's the reason why when people have transplants, they have to take transplant drugs to suppress the natural immune response to something in their body belong to them. Okay. And so I have personally held in my hand a sample that came from the Department of Veterans Affairs, but I've also was aware of previous samples very similar, where something, which is going to say something right now, was removed by a surgeon from the Department of Veterans Affairs on an individual, a former U.S. service member who claimed to have had an interaction with a UAP. When they tried to remove this object, according to the surgeon there, who was very upset by this, the object tried to evade being removed, meaning it moved under its own power, under its own metabolism, metabolic capability, and what appeared to the surgeon is trying to avoid detection. Now, why is that significant? Because there was no immunocascade response, meaning there are, let me give you an example, parasites out there. There's something called a spirochete. Certain trypanosomes have this capability. They're highly motile and they have this little tail that they whip around and they move throughout the body. And when they do that, they create this enormous trail of destruction through what we call an immunocascade response, or a white blood cell response, trying to fight the infection as this thing is moving around. That was not the case with this foreign object that appeared to have encapsulated itself with some sort of, looked like human tissue, maybe from the host, from the person, and yet had I like to say a technical device, a small metallic, I don't want to say the word chip because that is so cliche. We don't know if it was a chip. It's a piece of metal in there. And around this encapsulated area, there were these what appeared to be referred to as Morgellon fibers. Morgellon fibers comes from the old wizard Morgella, who was the sister of the wizard in King Arthur. So these Morgellon fibers, when under scrutiny, don't seem to have any DNA. Some have said that they're fibers from carpet, that they're artificial fibers, or blue and red fibers, but these were not carpet fibers. This was removed from underneath the skin of an individual with a chip, and those fibers can be clearly seen. More, I think, alarming is the fact that one of the forensic pathologists that was looking at this sample said that it had its own metabolism, meaning it still moved underneath the microscope when they were studying it.
Sorry, what's the definition of metabolism being used here?
So anything that is alive gets its energy. Usually we consider, for example, human beings and animals through the ATP, ADP process, adenosine triphosphate to adenosine diphosphate. When you cleave one of those phosphates, you create energy. It's all part of the Krebs cycle, what they call citric acid cycle. Sure. And that is a metabolism, basically. That is how we derive energy from consumption, right? And so you can metabolize and you create energy. Anything that moves.
So I guess what he's talking about is you have these things that are within the human body that are not part of the human body, that are within it, that are moving under their own energy, that basically gives them the opportunity to go ahead and move around because they have their own metabolism, meaning they have their own way of self-sustaining energy and bring it together. Interesting.
To move. So you either have to have an external energy supply or you have to have an internal energy supply. In this particular case, the object that was removed seemed to have an internal energy supply, right? So it had its own metabolism.
My understanding is that metabolism requires life. Like, you don't infer life from metabolism. You start with something living and then you call it metabolism. otherwise, you're just making an analogy by saying that something transforms energy, has self-repair, maybe some nutrient processing. But the phone that you have transforms energy. The phone that you have engages in a minor amount of self-repair with its adaptive battery. Maybe there's no nutrient processing, but all of that would have to be shown. So otherwise, you're just making an analogy and saying it's metabolism-like.
Yeah, but this is technological, not biomechanical. Totally different. So this is a technological device is deriving energy through a power source, and that power source is an external power source, usually via a battery, and it's using that in the form of electrons. This is not the case. We're talking about a biological metabolism, right? So the conversion of a biological process through the process of biochemistry to derive energy.
What I would like to learn and understand is, besides these things that were in human bodies, MRI scans, CT scans, any kind of additional information on these devices to give us an idea of what the hell they're pulling out of these people who are part of Veterans Affairs and other humans who are potentially not veterans, because we have to realize this is not just going on with people in the military. Military probably represents a small fraction of what's going on in the human populace. Shelley, I see you have your hand up, my dear lady.
Yeah. So my question is kind of, is he trying to see that these implants are...
They're foreign to the human body.
Are we like a power source for them? I don't know how to explain that, but
yeah, potentially. Are they going ahead and harvesting nutrients and minerals and other types of stuff that are part of our bodily juices to go ahead and can power themselves? Potentially. Or they could, that's what we're thinking, although there is no factual evidence on that being brought forward. Potentially, these little things that are moving on their own could potentially have their own internal energy sources. But until we get into the atomic level exploration of these devices, are we ever going to learn from it? Kind of like these particular things that Lou has talked about that he hold a sample up of need to get to someone like Dr. Gary Nolan or others who can do the atomic level research into these things to figure out what we're truly dealing with here, Shelley.
Some humans just naturally have some...
You're breaking up really bad, Shelley, right now. You may need to move to a better place. Sorry about that. We'll try and pick you up again in a minute. Harold, do you have your hand up as well?
Well, in some of those shows, haven't they done tests and stuff where they've used EMF meters and detected signals from them inside the body, and then after they were removed, the signal was gone from the object and the person?
If they have that, let's get into a proper scientific way to figure out what's going on and bring out the results and share with everybody. Unless the government wants to keep it covered up and doesn't want to share it. Again, think about this. The percentage, granted, the United States military, the Chinese military, they're the biggest employers in the world, only to be followed by Walmart. Just think about this. There are a lot of people who aren't in the military that are possibly having these things installed, and we need to figure out what's going on. I can't tell you how many encapsulated tumors I've pulled out of my body throughout the years. Actually, doctors have, and they don't know what the source is, why it's there, but it's something that's going on. I've never had those examined in the past, and if I get any excised in the future, Harold, I'm going to have them chop into it and look for something inside those capsules.
All right. Well, I believe Ben Hansen was involved in one of those.
Yeah.
Dissections or whatever you want to call them, extractions. Yeah.
Let's figure it out. Let's get the technology out, and let's get the technology to independent, non-government laboratories where we can get the truth out on truly what's going on. And that's what I want. I'm tired of the cover-up. I'm tired of the bullshit. I'm tired of the national security state that we live within. I think there's so many things going on that truly we deserve to know the truth of what's going on. If they want to keep the crafts and everything classified and the energy systems and the atomic level construction of these ships and how they go ahead and do their phenomenal movements. I don't care any about that. Seriously. All I care about, is what are they doing here on this planet today? Big picture. That's all I want to know. What are they doing here now? Not why are they doing it, but what are they doing?
That's exactly it. I agree with you there, Thomas. So
yeah.
All right, let's get back to your presentation here.
Thank you, sir. Here we go. We're getting close on the end. All right.
And so let me be clear on that. And also, let me finish this other piece for you as well. There's an individual, it's not my story to tell. So maybe this person will become public one day, but he's a senior CIA official who had a very scary UAP encounter with his wife. And they actually went to the CIA and to some of the doctors, and they were able to extract, well, first of all, the individual had a hole punched in the back of their neck, but the wife, when she blew her nose, had a foreign object.
Did he say his wife?
No, he's talking about the CIA person.
All right, I just want to go ahead and say a wife.
The individual had a hole punched in the back of their neck, but the wife, when she blew her nose, had a foreign object that was recovered. And so that's, again, I don't want to go too specific because it's not my story to tell. There's an individual that hopefully at some point will feel comfortable about being public about that. For now, I'm not going to say who the person was, but there's a lot of these examples. I know another one that's a good buddy of mine. We worked very close together. That had a very interesting situation as well, where there was potentially some sort of interesting encounter, and as a result, some sort of biological consequence. We talk about the 5 fundamental observables, but there are actually 6, and biological effects was one of them. Yes, we had actual doctors and surgeons looking into the medical consequences of military members and intelligence officials who may have gotten too close to a UAP. So that did indeed happen.
I know you got to get going, man, and we can continue talking for another couple hours. So I'll end with this question, which may be simple, maybe it's not, but are we souls or do we have souls?
I think most people do. There's maybe some individuals who don't. Maybe those are the individuals that do bad things to one another because they have the intellect, they have the mind, and they have a body, but somewhere along the way, they lack that essence that allows us to connect to one another and empathize with one another and help one another. And because of that, they don't have empathy, they don't have sympathy, and desperate to feel some emotion, they resort to doing bad things, potentially. There is real evil in this world. That is a fact. And I've seen it myself. And you can't negotiate with it. You can't barter with it. It feeds off of pain and suffering of other individuals. So, yes, I do believe the soul is real. I believe most people have it, maybe absent in other individuals.
All right, sir. I know you got to get going.
Curt, as always, honor and privilege.
What a great conversation coming out of Lue Elizondo along with Curt Jaimungal.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to have a media partnership with Curt to go ahead and cover this. Mike, your thoughts on this interview?
Well, first of all, the CIA agent and his wife that he was talking about was Jim Semivan, who he worked with at TTSA and unidentified. Second thing is this interview, as opposed to the other interviews that Lue has done so far, Curt was getting an insight into when you have a private conversation with Lue that's not public, and you hear what he really feels and thinks about the world and things in it. This is exactly what it sounds like, and you and I are well aware of that and how that goes. So now everybody else gets to see the real Lue and how he feels about everything, including himself. And I think it was a rare interview that Curt was able to have a conversation like that publicly with him, because you and I have only had private conversations with him like that. Certainly not public.
No.
So good for Curt. Good job. He gave some real insight into the world of Lue Elizondo for everybody to see.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
From the man who doesn't want to be the head of Disclosure, but whether he likes it or not, he is the identified lead of Disclosure. You know what I mean, Mike? He said he doesn't want to be part of it, but he doesn't want to be the leader. But the truth of the matter is, he is the leader. So sometimes, whether you like it or not, you have the role. You need to step up.
Which he's done, with the exception of the time that he's pulled back for almost 2 years because of the trolls and what was going on and him working on his book. But I can tell you that obviously he doesn't want to be the leader, the torchbearer for Disclosure, as he said publicly. He may not be, but I can tell you what he definitely is. He's the godfather of the modern UAP disclosure movement. And like it or not, he's going to be indelibly in the history books as that.
Take
the work
it,
that he's done since
enjoy it,
2017.
and run with it. Don't push back against it.
Exactly. So he may not want to be the person that's the known face of public disclosure.
Yeah.
But like it or not, you know, he is. And others have followed, like David Grush and Christopher Mellon and Carl Nell and everybody that has been moving forward since then. He ushered them out into the public.
Yeah.
And is continuing to do so behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this was a great interview.
Yeah, it
You're
was. Right. And who would have thought we would have gone 2 hours today, Mike, on a Saturday when there's... But there has been stuff going on. That's why we're here today to talk about this. And I appreciate you taking the time away from your family, your children, your beautiful wife to go ahead and be a part of this conversation today.
Well, thank you, my friend. That's kind of you to say, but it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're able to bring out the personal side of Lue via Curt Jaimungal.
Yeah.
For the audience. They have it's nice for them to see what you and I have known all along.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could, Hollywood Herald and Tia have their hands up. Hollywood, go ahead first.
All right. Well, I just watched an episode of Weaponized with the Colores 1977 Brazilian attack and stuff. And that ties right into Lue's sixth observable about the physical damage to human beings and stuff. I thought that was interesting too, right?
Yeah.
That's another episode and another conversation, Harold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 2,000 individuals in South America were injured by UAPs.
I like to understand about the damage to my immune system that I've been dealing with since I was starting getting abducted between the ages of 5 and 8. And it's a health problem that I've been dealing with for a majority of my life, Mike.
No, Thomas, I know you're well aware of it personally, as well as professionally. I'm well aware of it. But we could have an episode on this and we can cover what they talked about.
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
If we can't get back to it, Tia Loreno, you have your hand up, my dear lady.
I think that some of the best leaders in history have not wanted to be leaders, right?
Yeah.
I think that speaks of his essence is what he said, right? I think that that's who Lue is, and I think we only get a couple of them at certain times in history, so we should definitely not take advantage of him.
True. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Tia. Thank you for putting on your camera today as well. It's always wonderful to see your beautiful face.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. What a great show. What a great opportunity to hang out with friends, Mike. I just want to go ahead and thank everybody who's given us a super chat tonight. Who am I talking about? Let's go ahead and take a look at the list of the people throwing out super chats our way tonight for Disclosure tonight. Freezerman71 started it off. Holy cow. Thank you very much, Freezerman71. Turn that off. Make sure it's not going to go on. There we go. Freezerman71. Followed by Sang Boom. Thank you very much, Sang Boom. FaZe Will. Great super chat. You were a regular supporter Disclosure tonight. You're in the back. Thank you very much. I am so personally thankful of your ongoing support of Disclosure tonight. Also want to thank JCat, another regular who's in the back and who's part of the conversation. Ian Harding. just simple thank you, Marcus Mandel. And, of course, Eli McGinnis following up at the end. Thank you very much, everybody. Happy Saturday. Hope your day is going well. Yeah, there's another Lue Elizondo interview coming out right now from that UFO podcast from our friend Annie McGrillen in the United Kingdom. A lot of people watching it. It's a place you can go ahead and hang out next. I want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight to Disclosure tonight. Holy cow. I want to thank the people in our audience. Do we have another one that I missed? No, I didn't. I want to thank the people in our audience who've been part of the show tonight, including Andy W., Aubrey McLeod, Bulldozer Vamp, Elon McGinnis, Invisible Tracker, J-Cat, John Smith, Kathy Kellebroten, and Piercing Blue Eyes, King Bull, Marcus Mandel, Marcus and the Mandels, Metal Gaming on the Rise, Paul Damon, Pete Liebel, Tetz, and of course, Xavier. Thank you for all the updates you give me on a regular basis, Xavier. You are a legend, my friend, on that note. I also want to go ahead and thank, not just that, I want to thank the people who have been in the back for this conversation today. Andy, thank you for coming out today, my friend. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers, Tom. It's a bit quiet totally quiet on here tonight, but yeah, what a great interview by Curt. Did a really good job there, and he, you didn't show the bit, but we saw, a sensitive side of Lue, which was, really good.
Absolutely. Also want to thank Hollywood Harold. Thanks for coming out tonight, Harold.
My pleasure, Thomas. It's the only place I get to ask questions, man, and get some honest answers some days. You know,
better
right?
believe it. Hey, Laura, thanks for coming out. Let's cover your stuff on our next show if we could. We're kind of at the end here.
Not a problem. I can hold off.
Thank you. Also want to thank Ali from Sweden. Thanks for coming in, my friend. And thank you for all of your, I want to thank you for all of your new friends who've come from other countries who are demanding Shira law. Ollie? Maybe not. Faiswell from Southern California, the place you ought to be. Thanks for coming in today, William.
Yep, good show. Great show today, Thomas. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
You better believe it. And also, Shelly. Thanks for coming out tonight, Shelly. Is your mic fixed?
Yes, Thomas, thank you so much. And Curt, big shout out to you. And Lou, thank you for everything you tell us.
Oh, absolutely. And Teal Reno, good to see you, my dear lady.
Thank you, Thomas. It was an awesome show.
Thank you for being around as we usually. Mike, hold on a second before I close this out, before saying the night. Mike, Disclosure, thanks for coming out, my friend.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I wouldn't have missed it. And I also want to thank our good friend Tom Whitmore for jumping in the back with us.
Yeah.
It's good to see him.
Yeah. He's been quiet. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's okay. That's fine. He'll talk in the back chat. But I'm glad he was part of the show today. And then he came with us. And it's been fun. It was a fun interview.
Absolutely.
And it was a fun conversation.
And as we usually say at the end of every episode of Disclosure tonight, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everyone. But, of course...
Go back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. Love ya. We'll see ya on Monday. Good night. Take care. Bye-bye.